Assignment 7. We are in OneNote again. I'm using OneNote, the app that I installed from Office 365, but whichever platform you're using is fine. I just want to let you know in case mine looks a little bit different to yours. And again, mine will always look different because this is the teacher version. So you're going to find your name, and underneath your name, you're going to go to classwork. And then you're looking for Unit 3, Terrible Things, Developing a Deeper Understanding. You have audio directions here, and the written directions are on the page. So if we begin at the top of the page, there are the directions. It says, to further understand the children's story, Terrible Things, an Allegory of the Holocaust by Eve Buntin, complete the graphic organizers below. Each graphic organizer provides an explanation of expectations. When you have completed both graphic organizers, we answer the question, why would authors choose to use an allegory to tell a story? So the first graphic organizer looks at analyzing an allegory. A historical allegory is a story that represents a real event or situation. In this case, Eve Buntin uses an allegory to symbolize the Holocaust. Complete the chart below stating what in history you believe each story element represents. An example has been provided for you. Be sure to respond with complete sentences. So if you look at this graphic organizer, the left-hand column says story element. So these are the different elements from the story that you're going to analyze. On the right-hand side, it says historical representation. This is where you're going to type your responses. The first one has been done for you. So the story element is the terrible smell. The historical representation has been already identified for you. The terrible smell is most likely symbolic of the smell of death. The historical representation has been provided for you. The terrible smell is most likely symbolic of the smell of death. In the case of the Holocaust, the terrible smell might specifically symbolize the smell from the cremation ovens and mass graves. So I want you to think back to the activity you did last week with building background knowledge, right? One of the questions asked you about the number of Jewish people that were killed during the Holocaust, Jewish people and other people as well. Specifically, sometimes those people that are considered minorities and people that didn't fit into this ideal race that Hitler was trying to create. So thinking back to your question, the answer was 6 million Jews. That's a lot of people. So that would represent perhaps this smell, the smell of death. You're going to go ahead and complete the rest of the graphic organizer. So what or who do you think the terrible things represent from history? What does the forest symbolize? What does the forest represent? Then we're looking at the different creatures that were in the forest. So the birds, the fish, the porcupines, the squirrels, the frogs. Who might they be? Then we have the qualities of some of those creatures. So the feathers, the tails, the fact that they could swim, the quills, the color white. What do those things maybe represent? Big rabbit, who would Big Rabbit represent? And then we have Little Rabbit too. What might Little Rabbit represent? When you're done with the first graphic organizer, you're going to scroll down to the second one. Eve Buntin also uses repetition as symbolic. Review each of the following quotes from the story and explain why you think Buntin repeats the phrase and what it symbolizes. So first, looking at this question, it asks you to do 2 things. So first of all, you're looking for why, and then you're also looking for what. You have to explain both things in each of your answers. You also want to make sure that you are responding with complete sentences. We still want to practice our writing skills. So the 3 phrases you have, but life went on, but life in the clearing went on as before, because these phrases have been repeated frequently throughout the text, and you're going to think about why. Why would Buntin choose to repeat them? What's the purpose of their repetition? And then also, what do they symbolize? What do they mean? What do they represent? Same thing for the second one. So terrible things don't need a reason. We heard this multiple times. So why would it be repeated? And then what does this show? What does this symbolize? What does it represent? What does it mean? Just be glad it wasn't us. Oh, it couldn't happen to us. Why would these phrases be repeated? What do they mean? So for each quote, know that you're looking to explain why it's been repeated, and you're also looking to explain what it symbolizes. After you've done both graphic organizers, I would like you to revisit your response from the previous day's assignment. So revisit your response to work in from the text from Unit 3, Analyzing an Allegory, to see if your answer has now changed, or if you would like to add to it. Add your new response on this page. So what I would like you to do is to go back to the previous day. And if you remember, the very last question you answered after completing all of the work was, why would authors choose to use an allegory to tell a story? I would like you to read your response. Think about what you've done for today's assignment, where you had to pull apart specific things, specific story elements, and look at and see what they represented. And then you were looking at the repetition and what does that symbolize? Because now you have a deeper understanding, perhaps, of why Eve Bunton chose to tell her story of the Holocaust as an allegory, and why would authors choose to do this. So you're going to add to your response here. You're going to identify if, yes, you would change your response. I would change my response by adding this to it. Or perhaps you would completely change your response. So you're just going to identify now, with the things that you've learned through this lesson, how has your answer developed more. Make sure your response is saved, and that's how you submit your work.